Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie. Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Our guest today is Dr. Tom Denham from Careers in Transition. We're going to discuss 3 of the things a professional cannot do without. Dr. Tom, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
We have these 3 things coming up, but
Yes.
in order to set the stage for that, let's just talk about, because you've mentioned this before, there's a certain competition in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And how important is it that people think about how they can get better, how they can improve themselves day to day?
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting because I think when we talk about career development, it's really about getting the job, and then we try to do the best job we can. But after 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 years, we have a tendency to get complacent. We have this perhaps false sense of security that as long as I give my loyalty, the company is going to provide their loyalty and a paycheck, and we know that that social contract is over. So really, we've entered this era of career self-management. It's very important to stay on top of your game.
So in a way, it's like some people are entrepreneurs. They want to be on their own. They want to think. They don't want to take anything that anybody says as definitely true. And they think for themselves, and they work, and they think they're responsible. And other people are a little more good people who do what their parents said in the beginning, and they do what their boss says, and they're always looking for guidance without that internal desire. Would you say that's a kind of a factor?
It's similar. I think what happens is when you're an employee, your work is directed by other people. You're basically told what to do. You have these expectations, and your goal is to always please your boss or meet expectations or hopefully exceed expectations. And in exchange for that, you get job security, which today is a myth. When you're an entrepreneur, you have no safety net. That's the definition of an entrepreneur, somebody that doesn't have a safety net. So you're constantly hustling, and you're also holding yourself accountable all the time. So, but I think as an entrepreneur myself, I'm only limited by myself. Whereas if you work for other people, sometimes your career direction is decided by other people. So for example, you were hired to do this particular job, and then all of a sudden, after a year or 2, your boss comes in and says, we're going in a different direction, we want you to do this over here. You may or may not be skilled at that, and you may not like that as well. So Harvey McKay, I just wanted to point out, he wrote this book called Swim with the Sharks, and he's noted for this quote, and he once said that you should dig your well before you're thirsty. And so the things that we're going to talk about today are really about digging your well so you have a safety net. And we're going to talk about what that safety net is.
So one more segue before we do that.
Yeah.
There is a spectrum, I guess, in businesses for where it's not an entrepreneurial business. And people know today in this spectrum that it's better to have employees think and to be creative and to be able to make decisions to help customers and sell products and whatever. And other businesses are a little bit old-fashioned, and the boss is always right, and so employees tend to be like what you're saying, don't be.
Right. So yeah, you have the enlightened employers who want to create a corporate culture where their employees can think, solve problems, work as a team, take initiative, and be rewarded for that. And then you have other employers that are back in the dark ages where there is less discussion, less initiative, less problem solving, do what you're told.
So with that groundwork.
Yes.
Let's think of what's the first thing that you wanted to talk about in terms of these 3 things.
Well, I think the first thing that I personally can't do without, and I don't think anyone else should do without, is your brand. A brand is that image of what people think about you. So my mom, when I think of my mom and I think about her professionally, she was a florist. She worked in the floral industry as a floral designer for 45 years. Okay, whether she liked it or not, that was her brand. You are what you do all day long. She was not a dentist, she was not a doctor, she was not a civil engineer, she wasn't a nurse, she was a florist. When I think of Richard Naylor, I don't think of Richard Naylor as husband or world traveler. I think of him as a librarian. So it's very important that people get clarity on what their brand is. So, you know, as a career counselor in private practice and being a single parent, I am dependent on people knowing exactly what my brand is and knowing exactly what I want. So when I think of Dr. Tom, I want them to, I need help with a resume, think of Dr. Tom. I need help with a cover letter, I need Dr. Tom. I want to make a career transition, think of Dr. Tom. I have an interview coming up, I want prep work, think of Dr. Tom. I need my oil change, think of Gochi's Garage in Delmar.
Right.
Okay, I'm not a plumber, I'm not a hairdresser, as you can see. So that is my
I can
brand.
attest to that because I once invited you to do a talk at a library conference on a topic that was a little outside of your wheelhouse, as a friend
Right.
of mine just said. And you said, you know, I've got somebody that I think would be very good for that.
Right. I'm a subject matter expert in career development, and I'm pretty clear on the topics that I can talk about. It's very much like being a doctor, where, you know, I'm a family physician, and if you've got a problem with your foot, I farm it out to a podiatrist. So I think it's important that people know what their brand is, and do people know what you want? So, for example, what I want are clients that are making a career transition, and I want speaking engagements. Those are the two things that I want.
This kind of ties in a little bit to what has been called an elevator speech, although in the Capital Region, I've pointed out to people, there aren't a lot of elevators, and they're very short rides. But
It means a shorter elevator speech, I would assume.
But nonetheless, how do you communicate to somebody in a space where you have the floor a message that would be both interesting to the other person and helpful to you?
Well, I think the elevator speech exercise helps people gain clarity about who they are and what they have to offer. I've actually written an article, and people can Google it. It's on the internet. It's called Perfecting Your Elevator Speech. And so what you want to say during that 30-second or even 10, 15 seconds is, who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? What's a good referral? And what's the result? Okay. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? What's the result? What's a good referral? And then at the end, you say your name again. And being in business, I've heard a lot of good elevator speeches, but unfortunately, far more poor elevator speeches. When somebody gives a poor elevator speech, it means that they're not clear on who they are and what they have to offer.
And when you said, what do you want? That struck a chord, because I've heard people say recently that that's one of the really important things that people should have and that many do not have. They don't really know exactly what they want. Now, if you define what I want as I want to make a lot of money, that's too general. That's not going to help anybody, and nobody cares about that.
Right. You know, what I just use myself as a role model. What I want are more clients and speaking engagements, so I can make more money and send my kid to Harvard.
But nobody is really as concerned about the Harvard part as
right.
they are about
that's the
getting
down
a job. Or
right. I mean, my focus is not on the money. My focus is on serving clients. So what I'm doing is I'm deputizing people to go out into the world, and when they come across somebody at a cocktail party or a barbecue that's having some kind of job or career problem, that I'm the very first thing that they think of. What is the very first thing that people think of you? What is that image? What is that brand? What is that reputation that you have out there? So when I think of Richard Naylor, I think of a subject matter expert in libraries. When somebody else thinks of you, what is their first impression? So in my personal life, I have a mountain climbing brand.
Right.
And so people will send me people who want advice about that, which I'm happy to give. They will send me people who want to go hiking, which happened last week. They will send me pictures of their hikes. They will send me books, all
now
kinds
is this
of things.
in a business context?
No,
also?
it has nothing to do with business.
Okay,
It has
so this
nothing
is
to do with
totally
business.
private life.
It's totally private life.
Okay.
So that's the personal brand, and then I have the professional brand. And the other personal brand is father and friend and homeowner and those kind of things.
Well, let's look at some dimensions of the brand.
Yeah.
You've said some things that made me think of, okay, you like mountain climbing.
Yes.
And I can attest to that, that some of this is not just like a little mountain.
No,
This is the straight up kind of thing.
Right.
And that is a personal thing, but it's a good thing.
Yes.
It's a thing that I can respect.
Right.
You know, I might think you're crazy for going up Mount Everest.
Yeah, sure.
But you haven't done that one yet.
Not yet. Still
but,
time.
But nonetheless, I respect that. Some people create aspects of their brand that way that are negative. There's been a couple politicians lately who've gotten a lot of press, I won't mention their names,
Sure.
for things that are definitely not good for their brand. So that dimension of reputation kind of thing.
Well, one of the things that I would want to stress to everyone is that your reputation is all you have. And today, more than ever, your online reputation is your reputation. So whatever you're putting out on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn is, in fact, your brand. So one of the things that I try to do to model the way is everything I post on Facebook is positive. I do the Dr. Tom career tip of the day, and it's always some kind of inspiring quote. The articles that I write are always positive. You'll never find an article that I've ever written for the Times Union that's negative. So you also have to hold yourself accountable, and I model my life on this acronym called BASE. It means be a superior example. So whether it's my words, my actions, my deeds, my behaviors, I'm always thinking about, am I being an example? Because there are no days off for role models. And I also have a 13-year-old daughter. And
who's watching you?
Who's probably all the time, all the time. She may not be listening to me, but she's watching me.
Dad.
Yeah, yeah. No, she would never say you said.
Oh.
Because she's probably not listening.
Oh.
She would probably say, she won't even, she may not even say anything, but she's watching and observing and she's learning that way.
Okay, other dimensions of a brand. How good are you? Is that a big one?
I think that's part of it. It's certainly getting. Again, your reputation is what you have. I mean, when you think of
so that's the same.
When you think of Mother Teresa, that's a brand. You think of Martin Luther King, that's a brand. You think of Oprah Winfrey, that's a brand. When you think of Lindsay Lohan, that's a brand.
I don't.
And you probably shouldn't. I try not to. But those, Tiger Woods, or you think of Elliot Spitzer or Anthony Weiner, those are all brands out there. Those are all reputations.
Damaged.
What is the first thing that you think of when you think of those two types of brands? Is it positive or negative? And in career management, we have to be very aware of what the brand is and then manage the brand, promote the brand, protect the brand.
Now, you were talking in the very beginning about, okay, what happens if you're a boss, and if you're an entrepreneur and you're working for yourself, maybe you've changed your mind, maybe the market's changed. The brand in terms of expansion, in terms of creativity, I don't know, how does that fit in? How does that fit in?
Well, I think, people are changing jobs and careers throughout their lifetime. So you certainly would be rebranding yourself. So, for example, you look at Dunkin' Donuts. When you and I were growing up, it was a time to make the donuts was their slogan. And so you'd have this guy get up early in the morning,
Right.
He would make donuts. There was no mention about coffee.
It was freshness at that point.
Yeah. Well, there was no mention about the other brand, which they have now, which is coffee.
Right.
Okay. America runs on Dunkin'. It doesn't run on a Dunkin' Donuts.
No,
it runs on Dunkin' Coffee.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so when you see a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, it's all about the coffee. What are you drinking? I'm drinking Dunkin'.
Right.
That's what. And then they also have these other things called donuts and breads and sandwiches and that kind of thing. McDonald's, for example, is either about breakfast or it's about hamburgers. Okay. Now they're trying to rebrand themselves as Newman's Coffee. So if you watch a lot of the McDonald's commercials, it's all about Newman's Coffee, Newman's Coffee, Newman's Coffee, which personally I don't think is very good.
It's not rated very well either.
No, it's not rated very well, and it's having a hard time competing with this other more established brand. So how does this relate to other people? For example, if you're in one field, going back to school could be a transition to going into a different brand. And you can have multiple brands. We all wear multiple hats and that kind of thing. But you want to get clarity on what those brands are. Once you have clarity about your brand, then you can focus your emotional energy and time and money into doing that brand, which is what you love to do. Now, when I have a mountain climbing brand, I'm going to pour all my personal time and energy into that because that's based on what I value. If you do not like your brand, you should change it.
Right. I'm still trying. There's still something missing. I think, okay, if somebody's watching the show and they're thinking, okay, now what should I do differently?
Well,
how can I improve my
first
brand?
of all, you should stop. You should stop and do self-assessment.
Okay.
Who am I? Where am I now? And where do I want to go?
And back to what do I want to do? What do I want?
Right. What do I want? And do other people know what I want? So brand clarity means self-assessment. Like, for example, using these companies as models, they did some self-assessment. Who are we as a company? What does the marketplace want? Where do we want to go? And does where we want to go fit with who we are now? So people have to stop, do the hard questioning. Who am I? Where am I going? How am I going to get there? What is my calling? What is my life work? Am I happy with the brand that I have? What brand would be a better fit for me?
I have a bit of a marketing background, so that kind of triggered, okay, I got it. A brand needs to have a lot of the characteristics that people appreciate about that brand. So if I do hair, then there may be a lot of different types of hair I can do.
Sure.
I could do different types of people. Maybe I have better hours. So in other words, how can I stand out? How do you make your brand stand out?
Well, there's two ways that I think you can build your brand. And one is through real networking, and the other is through social networking. So first and foremost, brand clarity. Second, how are you pushing that brand out there? Through meeting people one-on-one, shaking hands, going to networking events, being visible. And the other is through your social networking that you do. You do not need to be a social media expert. But again, I think you have to stop and think about what you're putting on the internet, rather than being impulsive and just putting something about Obamacare or gun control or something about abortion or Syria that it could be controversial. Is that really the message that you want to send? The message that I want to send is, if I die in an avalanche, I want people to know that I was the most inspiring person in their life. So if that is my goal, what am I doing today to achieve that goal? And it can be done in very, very small ways. I can send a text message to 10 of my friends and say, have a totally awesome day. If I do that, once a week for a whole year, I'm building them. I'm advocating for them and creating good tidings. So the real networking, and when we think about about building the brand, if we're in a job and we're getting complacent or we've plateaued, the networking, it's just one more thing we got to do. And the social network, that's just one more thing we got to do. And our lives are all crazy busy, so we just kind of let it slide. There's nothing, it's very much like retirement. Nothing will happen to you if you don't save for retirement until the time you retire, and then you don't have what you need. Again, it goes back to the concept of digging your well before you need it.
Now, there's a lot of different types of people, different companies, different jobs, and I would think there's some differences. So let's say you look at Apple, as opposed to a coffee emporium. Apple is famous for what?
Innovative ideas that change our world using technology.
So yeah,
the most innovative company in the world, probably.
And I think that's the kind of thing that I was getting at. That's another aspect of the brand.
Right.
There's how to communicate the brand, and then there's creating the types of images in people's mind about you and your company. That makes them both respect it and want to do it.
There's a whole science behind this.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can't cover all that.
Right. I think and I think branding should be fun. You should have a good time with this. I'm working with a client right now. She's 67 years old. I asked her what her brand was, and she says, "I love baking." And so I'm working with her, and she's going to start her own, she's going to start very small, and she's going to start baking cookies and start selling them. Well, and she loves it. Her brand is based on her values. She should not be, mountain climbing. It's not her brand.
Right.
Yeah. But once she gets this brand, people are going to come to her. She's going to attract more people that are going to want to buy more cookies. She's going to be the cookie lady, right? And that's only, and then she's going to ask them, if you know of somebody that needs cookies, please let me know. And that's only going to expand her brand. That's what you want. You don't want to have brand confusion.
Right. Number two.
Number two. Oh, there's a number two? Okay, first thing I can't do without, or you can't do without, is brand. The second thing is a business card. The business card in marketing, we would call it a leave behind. This is the very first impression that somebody gets of you. If you're in business or you have a personal business card, you should spend the money and get a smoking hot, gorgeous business card, because this is the first impression. I'll tell you a quick story. I was at a networking function recently, and this person is a photographer, and so he gave me his business card.
Does it fold?
No, but it didn't have. It had a black and white picture on it, and he didn't use the back.
Oh.
I've seen other photographer business cards where they have the best picture that they've ever taken on the front and the back of the card.
They're a photographer, after all.
Please. I mean, really. I mean, if you're a translator or a tutor or something like that, or you're a career counselor, maybe you don't have to have that. But if you're in photography or graphic design, that should be, you have to have that. I have my picture on my business card. We remember 80% of what we see and 20% of what we hear. If you collect a business card of a real estate agent, or you just drive around town, you see the signs, there'll be a picture of them on these signs. Again, it's more branding.
And that makes really good sense for that kind of position. I have a picture of the library on my card, because it's not about me, it's really about the library.
That's right. People hire Dr. Tom Denham to be their career counselor. They don't hire careers in transition.
No.
Now, I have my logo on there just as another branding device, exactly, or tool, that kind of thing. But you're right. You are the library. And that's why when I was at Siena, there's no pictures on there. There is a picture of the logo of the institution.
To make you think
and everyone gets the same card. The mistake that a place like Siena and most colleges and most institutions is they only use one side. So what they should have done on my business card as the director is written a summary of services on the back of the card. So every time I give it out to an employer or a student, when they need those services, I'm the first person that they think about.
Or what do you think about the ones where you have to write your own name in and it's just a generic card?
I would say they're amateurs. That's, again, going back to the brand, what is the first impression you get? When either you meet somebody or they give you your card.
I would say my impression in that case is they're cheap.
Cheap.
Or poor. I mean, one or the other.
Unprofessional, amateur, not serious. Not serious. So you obviously want to have your contact information. You want to have the name of your company, your email, your website. More and more people are putting their LinkedIn on there. I've got my picture, my logo. I've got my tagline, Career Counseling for the Capital Region. You flip it on the backside. It has the 5 services I offer, plus there's a little space for an appointment reminder. So when I'm working with a client,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, after the session, what I do is I have them fill out the back as their appointment reminder as we're getting the next session on the calendar.
Nice.
So they always have that. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll tack that to their refrigerator, and again, that's creating more top of mind awareness. They're thinking about me. It's often another top of mind awareness idea that I think is really effective is Allstate insurance. I mean, if you watch college football, every time somebody kicks a field goal, they hoist up the Allstate insurance logo on there. I haven't bought any insurance from Allstate, but again, if I was thinking about insurance, I might go to them first. If I didn't go to the Gecko,
unless you like
or
little
the
animals
or
little Snoopies or
yeah, exactly. So I think the business card is absolutely essential. I personally go through about 1,000 business cards every 6 months. I'm constantly giving them out. They cost 8.9 cents each.
Do you ever get people who are like saying, Isn't that old-fashioned? I have a website and I have my
They're not-
Facebook and I have
it's-
my...
well, Richard, quite frankly, it's kind of like saying, is the library old-fashioned? Are books old-fashioned?
It was a rhetorical question.
Books aren't going away. The internet's not going away. Business cards are not going away. It's actually what we do after we have the business card,
Right.
which we'll talk about in
Right.
a second. But I don't see business cards going away. I haven't met anyone at a networking function that said, I don't have a business card, or I have met them, but usually they're at home or they don't have them with them
Right.
at that time.
Right.
But you would look absolutely foolish. Talk about being an amateur or not serious or not professional. You go to any kind of networking function and you don't have a business card, what's the matter with you?
Right.
Yeah.
As well as a resume, but
Yeah.
that's...
The President of the United States doesn't have a business card. But
he doesn't even have money sometimes.
So in my pocket every day, I put this card holder that has my business cards in it. I have been on mountains, I have been on Cape Cod, and people have talked to me or we're striking up a conversation, and they have taken my card and I have gotten clients from that. And remember, the business card for me is like my resume. I'm passing out my resume all the time because I'm constantly trying to get a new client. So
Now people are probably thinking, that's great, how do I make a good business card, because I'm not a graphic designer. I do cakes,
right.
or flowers,
they could have an appointment with me. I could give them the basics, but there are plenty of people who are graphic designers who could take it to the next level. I certainly would sit down with somebody, and the very first thing I would do before I even got to the business card is decide on what the brand is. See, a lot of people, they have an idea for the business, and then they go right to the business card, and then they have a hard time designing it because they're not clear on the brand. The
Right.
brand comes first. And then you design the
Okay.
business card. That business card is a result of that. But there are other certainly copy places that can help you.
So I guess the point is there's a lot of ways to get a business card that are very simple and easy, but you don't get any help. I can go online.
You can go to vistaprint.com and have a business card tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. Is that card conveying the message that you really want to send? Too often people are developing their business cards in isolation by themselves. And then I'll go to a networking function, I'll get the card, and I have to give them a critique. It's almost like I can't help myself. I have to say, have you thought about using both sides? Have you thought about putting your name on this? Is this your picture on it? Is this business set in stone? Because it doesn't really describe what you do. I mean, careers in transition, I've had a lot of people say to me, my career's in transition, which is the right trigger that I'm trying to get. They don't use both sides. They may have different color schemes that don't fit.
Okay.
You see a black business card that connotes something. If you're a tuxedo place, yeah, a black business card would be great.
Or some kind of artistic photography.
Right,
or
photography,
something,
that kind of thing. Kind of elegant. Gold certainly has one connotation. My business card is blue because blue tends to be soft, warm, friendly, and that's the message I want to have. If I have a business card that's yellow, that's not sent. It doesn't evoke the right kind of message.
We're not in China. Yellow's
That
better
might,
there.
yeah.
But culturally, we do have these kind of things where blue is different.
Right, yeah. So you have to be careful of what your color scheme is. And that's why you need a group of people that you can sit down with and say, here's my business idea. This business idea is in alignment with my values. I need help, pushing this brand out.
And we won't even talk about you've got to carry your business card, because you already said you put it in your pocket every day.
I do, and some people may find that extreme. But again, I'm trying to dig my well before I need it.
How many business cards do you carry at a time?
There's probably 10 or 15 that can go in here. And when I take it out at the end of the day, I can shake it, and I can, just by the tone, I can tell.
You've done this before.
There's 12 in there now, and a different tone is, there's like 9 in there now, and I know I need to refill. I refilled it today. But you just don't want to be out there without a business card because it's a missed opportunity.
And maybe put some in your dash or someplace in your car so you can always grab them.
I have
if
them
you
in my
forget
car.
them.
I have them at home. I have them in my briefcase.
go.
I have them, I never want to be, and I'm supposed to be preaching networking. I don't want to go to a networking function and go, oh, I don't have a business card.
Right. So it's worse for some people than it is for others not to have a business card.
Yeah. I mean, I have to do this because I'm a single parent. I'm trying to run a business. And when you're doing that, you constantly want to push your brand out there and you're constantly marketing. Now, somebody that's working for an employer may not want to give out their business card all the time, but that's not really the point. The point is what happens a year from now when you get downsized, you get laid off, they go in a different direction. Do enough people know who you are, what you're looking for? Have you built your circle of influence?
And we could also be talking to employers who should consider whether their staff should have a business card and what it should look like.
Right. I mean, if you're an employer, you give your staff their business card, they are your ambassadors. They are your salespeople out there.
3.
Oh, there's a third. One of my favorite things, which is LinkedIn.
Right.
LinkedIn is the Facebook for professionals. There's 238 million people on LinkedIn right now as of January.
That's astonishing because we have, 350 million people in the country.
Well, this is worldwide.
Okay.
This is worldwide,
okay.
238 million. But if you were a company and you had 238 million customers, you'd be astonished. That would be incredible. Over 4,000 people work at LinkedIn. 4,000 people. That's a major company. It was the biggest IPO since Google. Social media is not going away. Social media is going away about as much as email is going away, or the internet. So you've either got to ride this wave or you're going to get crushed by it. One of the reasons why you want to get a LinkedIn profile is because it's the premier networking site for professionals out there. And everybody's doing it. So if you're going to a networking function and you don't have LinkedIn, again, you're looking like an amateur. You're not serious about your career development. And the LinkedIn is part of the high touch with the business card and the networking and the high tech. So we talked about, well, what do you do with all these business cards? Well, back in the day, you took your business cards and you put them in a drawer, you put them in a Rolodex. And when I was at Siena, I had a Rolodex, and then I filled it up. You know what it did? But another Rolodex. And this went on until I had 5 Rolodexes.
Now they belong in a museum.
Yeah, I just sort of use them. I actually do use them for workshops. I have them at home. I do it for illustrative purposes because I have these 5 giant Rolodexes. And in order for me to get...
Right, they had them like a Ferris wheel at one point. You would...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is, incredible. And when a student would come in, I would go through the Rolodex and pull out these contacts so I could help the student network. Well, to go through 5 Rolodexes to find, 10 or 15 connections, that took a considerable amount of time out of my counseling sessions. Now, I just have a client go into my LinkedIn where I have 1,900 connections. So they are tapping into my network.
That's great.
It's my references, it's my resume, it's my website, it is my list of contacts and connections and endorsements.
So, let's see. Which way should we go here? First, I know you always say networking first. So let's talk about it in terms of networking, the networking tool.
So let's tailor this to somebody who's watching this show. So for example, let's say you're working for a company and you just happen to go to a Christmas party. And being the good networker that you are, you have your business card there and you're just talking to somebody and they're talking about a potential opportunity that they may have for either you or for somebody else. You would take their business card. Maybe you would send them an email that said, hey, it was great meeting you at the Christmas party. I'd really like to sit down with you for a cup of coffee. So you sit down with them for a coffee, and then you talk business. You tell them what you need and what you're about, and then you do the listening. You ask them what they need and what they're about. And then what you can do is you put them in your LinkedIn, and then you can basically toss the business card. You don't need it anymore.
Right.
So what are you doing? You're constantly building your circle of influence. And when we talk about a circle of influence, your contacts or connections, you have 3 circles. You have an inner circle, a middle circle, and an outer circle. So I have a social media policy of only accepting people into LinkedIn that I know. Okay, that's why you're in there. I know you. I get LinkedIn requests every single day from people I don't know. Okay, so I hit ignore. In those 1,900 people, 1,800 of them are in the outer circle, lesser known contacts, connections. Then there are about 80 people in the middle circle. These are more well-developed relationships and associates. And then I have 20 people in the inner circle. So when it comes to networking and job searching and career development, you want to certainly maintain your relationships in the inner circle, but you want to keep building that circle of influence.
How does that work in terms of the LinkedIn software? Is that something that you know? Or are there any features in LinkedIn that allow you to signal that these 20 are inner circle?
No. There's nothing in there that says, these are the 20 in the inner. It's just a straight list of people. I do not have the premium, so maybe the premium at $35 a month allows you to categorize your connections that way.
So that's really a different picture of LinkedIn than I've seen before. I mean, by saying that you had a Rolodex before and now you have LinkedIn, it really becomes more of a tool than a contest to see how many names you can get on there.
Yes. There are two types of people who use LinkedIn. There are people called Lions, LinkedIn Open Networkers, and they accept everyone. So their goal, their objective, is to create a fan base as big as possible. Okay, it's kind of like saying I have 1 million followers on Twitter. Okay, and everyone except my mother, I don't know.
Right.
Okay, so with LinkedIn, if you're a Lion, you're going to have 10,000, 20,000 people. For me, as having the real relationships in there, I don't want to dilute my network with people I don't know, because I'm going to have a client pay me money and then have access to this network, and I don't want to have to say to the client, well, I don't know that person. Okay, so it's not a contest. When I went from Rolodexes to LinkedIn, my shelf space increased. The interesting thing is, as soon as you get that business card, if somebody changes their job in a year or two, the business card is outdated. In LinkedIn, it'll be constantly updated.
Right.
So I got a Rolodex out of it. I got a higher page ranking in Google, because if you Google Dr. Tom Denham, it's coming up. I've gotten speaking engagements out of it. I have a section on there for endorsements. I have a TV 17 Colonie public access video on it, so there's more of an interactivity on it. I have all these references on it, and I have a summary of my services. So I'm paying $0 for all of this. And so I'm a real big advocate of this. And the other thing that I do is it's a tool. That's what I mean. It's not a means to an end.
No,
I mean, it's not an end in itself.
Right.
As a matter of fact, LinkedIn's motto is relationships matter. So the real networking and the tool of LinkedIn, it's all about building meaningful relationships.
Now, I found another slight variation on that. There are people who ask to link who I have no idea who they are, except it looks like they like to sell something to me.
Right.
And I don't respond, and then I say block.
You can hit ignore.
Ignore.
Right.
But there are other people who are in the same profession, and I found that there are groups, and people post questions. Some of the questions I'm not interested in, but other times when there's a question I'm really interested in, people that I don't know are posting things that are really helpful.
Yes.
So it can also be, in a professional way, a way to keep up with what's going on.
Right. You're staying current with groups. You're also, if you start a discussion in a group in LinkedIn, you are pushing your brand out there as the SME, the subject matter expert. So, for example, one of the things that I do is I write a blog for the TU. I repost that blog to 50 different LinkedIn groups. And people will comment on it. They will like it. They may reshare it. I got a speaking engagement, a paid speaking engagement, because somebody read the blog. It was on mentoring, and they asked me to come to speak to their company about mentoring to some of their new, younger employees, and then they wrote me a check. I have tracked all the money I have made either through speaking engagements or new clients, and it's over $9,000. So it's not a joke. A lot of people say, well, how do you make money off of LinkedIn? Again, it's pushing your brand out there. And you're creating more opportunities. The more Richard Naylor spends on LinkedIn, the more he's going to be a subject matter expert, the more he's going to be invited to conferences to speak, the more he's going to be a candidate for the New York State Library Association presidency, the more the Library of Congress may call you up and say, you know, do a speech for us, or here's an opportunity. Things start to come to you. What we're really talking about today is being proactive. With the brand, with the business card, with the LinkedIn. It's all about being proactive in your career management. And that's what people have to get over. It's this inertia or this myth that they're in this comfort zone and that everything's going to be okay.
That's great. I think that's pretty interesting. I've learned something as well.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about LinkedIn, and the other thing about LinkedIn, it's changing all the time. So every time I think I'm a subject matter expert, they change something, they add something new. But for me, it's a tool. The ultimate goal is really not the money, although that's very nice. It's about building relationships, because just like LinkedIn, I believe that relationships matter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great show today.
It was fun. And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, that you tune in again next time, and that you have a great week. Take care. Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.